Hi, my name is Haley Castillo, and this is the VPSO program, Alaska Case Study. So, who are they? What does VPSO stand for? It stands for Village Public Safety Officer. And this program began in the late 1970s, and their main role is providing rural Alaskan communities with needed public safety services at the local level. These guys are the multi-tool of emergency services. um, They provide the community with limited emergency medical services, search and rescue operations, fire prevention and suppression, emergency response and preparedness, public safety and education, and community policing as well. Though, of course, all of these are limited information that they have, but they're able to provide these kinds of assistance. A VPSO can also stabilize vital situations and preserve crime scenes until troopers can arrive. They can conduct complete misdemeanor investigations with advice and support provided by the Alaska State Troopers, and they are also able to get help from the state troopers in investigating crimes as well. So, what does this have to do with Alaska security here? So, they're actually super important. In communities associated with the Village Public Safety Officer program, citizens are able to get immediate response to emergencies without delays caused by weathers or distance that would ordinarily have been a problem. They help prevent these vulnerabilities by reducing the time and distance gaps by being in those communities very close range here. So it's really kind of a shame because these guys are super helpful and super important, but they have quite a few issues. They're spread very thin. An analysis by the Anchorage Daily News has found that the number of Alaskan VPSOs sharply declined in their numbers in the recent years, and the remaining officers are increasingly more likely to work in communities that have fewer than 100 residents, or to be in higher funded communities, which are closer to roads and highways, which is not the main goal that they are supposed to be accomplishing. They're supposed to be farther in more rural areas, so that way they will be able to hold down the fort until troopers and other response services can get there. They require more training, so you always need updated training. Their things are always changing here, and because they don't get paid very much and they don't get a lot of funding, they're not able to get all that proper training that's required. And like I mentioned just a couple seconds ago, they have insufficient funding, and that's one of the biggest issues of why everything's happening here. And because of that insufficient funding, they have a high turnover rate, low salaries and benefits, and there's an increased cost with training and academics, so they have to acquire all these emergency management skills and all these abilities, and that can be expensive. And also, on top of this, knowing all this, these VPSOs, it's not very attractive. It's more attractive to become an officer because they get paid a bit more and they're not super spread thin, and it's not as dangerous. Solutions. I found a few solutions that I think might be beneficial. The first one was grants and investing. Analysis management employees would focus solely on doing grants and finding money because agencies may be too small. So I know they're spread thin, but I think it would be beneficial for them to invest in one of these type of employees because they would be able to help them apply for and get grants. And this goes with police departments as well. They don't have, not a lot of them will have these kind of employees. But basically, agencies may be too small. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done on top of their own duties. This goes for officers and these, village police service officers as well. And they also don't really know what they're looking for and needing to do for these grants. So having that extra person will give them an edge in getting more grants, and it would probably pay off to have them working for them. Another thing I was looking at was having shared facilities. So some agencies are finding that it makes sense to share evidence storage at a warehouse or other facilities in order to pool resources and eliminate duplicated services. And I know because that these officers are having to be in more rural areas, it's just a suggestion of like maybe trying to get similar storage facilities closer by, maybe trying to have one place to get all their information and store evidence and stuff. It was just something that I thought might save a little bit of money there too. And one of the biggest solutions I thought would be super beneficial would be focusing on training and not technological advancement. So this goes with troopers and officers alike. Um, so one of the first things that seems to take a hit among budget line items is training costs. It can sometimes be difficult to actually measure the training and the value, particularly to the untrained eye that often holds the the strings in general. So how does this impact officer safety? The most important part of any officer's response in an emergency situation is how that officer reacts to stress. Without fail, officers will revert to their training and experience when they're faced in a high stress situation. It's not uncommon to hear agencies say they have to cut back on range training due to cost of ammunition and overtime hours. Gas and wear of vehicles has have caused a reduce to emergency vehicle operations and training. The question has to be, do you want a poorly trained officer with the best, most technologically advanced weapon in a high stress encounter? Or would you rather have a highly trained, proficient officer in the same situation with just an average weapon? And I think the correct answer here is you want the highly trained officer with an average weapon because they're going to be able to do more, especially with these community officers here. You want them to be more knowledgeable versus have better equipment. And it's nice to have better equipment, but I feel like the focus should be on having them using that money for gaining information instead, and that could save a lot as well. So overall, VPSOs play an important role in human security in Alaska because they are the ones who close the safety gap in Alaskan villages by being in close range so they can respond faster and to more problems that an emergency response unit might not be able to get to immediately and reach because of the things such as weather and distance. There has been a decrease in VPSOs due to lack of funding, a higher turnover rate, lack of training, and just limited opportunities in general. Some possible solutions I found were applying to more grants, showing facilities, and focusing on training instead of trying to go for more technological advancements. Citations.